endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination. Vice President Harris followed up on social media with a fundraising appeal stating, "I will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and his extreme Project 2025 agenda. If you're with me, add a donation right now." Two people familiar with the matter tell NBC News that Biden asked to see polling on how Harris would fare in a matchup against Trump. The polling had been solicited by Biden's campaign and was very tightly held. Let's bring in our reporters to make sense of this monumental moment. NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli. We're also joined by the host of Politics Nation, the Reverend Al Sharpton. It's great to have both of you there. Mike, what's the latest you're hearing from the Biden campaign?
Well, Chris, as I continue to speak with close advisors as well as others close to the campaign, it's really striking to me how across the board people, even though this decision was speculated could come as soon as this weekend, had been the source of a lot of, frankly, disarray within the party and hand-wringing about what the president would decide, that even as this decision was potentially expected to be what it is, people were still stunned and surprised to hear it when they did today. I'm told by somebody close to the president and very close to his team that as of Friday night, for instance, they were told he was still 100% in this race. It was a small circle of advisors who were with the president here in Rehoboth as he gave them the direction Saturday night to begin potentially preparing for an announcement that he would drop out of the race. It was a decision that he only communicated to the most even senior members of his White House and campaign team in a broader sense this afternoon, just before it was tweeted publicly that he was doing this. And I want to share some new reporting we have about a call that took place within the last a few hours involving the campaign chairwoman, Jen O'Malley-Dillon, as well as the campaign manager, Julie Chavez-Rodriguez, in which they addressed the campaign staff, who themselves were some only learning after it was already public that the president would be stepping aside. They spoke to the fact that this campaign, which was the Biden-Harris campaign, is now a Harris campaign, that everyone who is on the campaign staff will be continuing to be part of that campaign if they so choose, that the organization that they built to beat Donald Trump is still one that they intend to go forward and execute on that strategy. Jen O'Malley-Dillon reiterated that the team going forward, and everyone has a job who still wants to have a job. And they also talked about the coalition that they saw as the Biden-Harris coalition to lead them to victory is one that they still believe is intact. And in fact, we're already hearing from Democrats about the potentially ways in which that Biden coalition could shift in its focus. The Biden team had always maintained, and O'Malley-Dillon said this on our air here just in the last 48 hours, that they still thought the most likely path for him to succeed was those blue wall states, especially in the Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. But now perhaps this could shift with Vice President Harris now leading the ticket, the first black woman ever to lead a major party ticket. You could see an emphasis shifting to the Sun Belt states, North Carolina, to Georgia, even to Arizona. North Carolina and Georgia so significant because of they are heavily African-American populations in those states who will be galvanized even more so to support her. You're also hearing that in terms of speculation now. The Veep stakes is already underway. Chris, who Vice President Harris might choose as her running mate. Among those whose names have been floated to me already, Governor Cooper of North Carolina, who's finishing his second term, also served for 16 years as Attorney General, including with Vice President Harris when she was the California Attorney General. Another name that we're hearing a lot is Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, somebody who is a veteran, somebody who is new to the Senate, but brings a lot of qualities to the ticket as well. So the campaign, the country is taking stock of this monumental decision, but it's one that was very difficult for the president to make. But ultimately, he decided that in order to win this race, he could not continue to fight on two fronts, one against Donald Trump and the other against his party. And he's putting now his party's interest, and he believes the nation's interest, first and foremost by making this decision, Chris.
Mike Memoli, thank you for that. I want to bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. And Monica, without a doubt, phones have been burning up the lines. People are talking. Groups are organizing. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Chris, that's exactly right. And I'm told by a source familiar directly with this series of calls that the president, unsurprisingly, has been working the phones over the last couple of hours as well. There are countless people who want to speak to him in this moment. There were countless who wanted to speak to him in the last couple of weeks about his decision, about getting to this potential conclusion. And now that he is certainly talking to people. But to pull back the curtain a little bit on how exactly he got to this consequential moment, we understand, Chris, that he really started to approach this decision more seriously about exiting the race last night, I'm told, that he was surrounded by some very close advisors, his close family, First Lady Jill Biden, and then this morning they finalized the details of what would ultimately go into that letter that we all saw post around 1:46 p.m. Eastern today. And I'm told that just 1 minute prior to that, at 1:45 p.m., that's when he called the senior campaign and White House leadership involved in many of these key decisions to inform them that this was about to post. But we also can report that just a short time before that, he did have separate conversations with Vice President Harris. We know they talked a couple of times today, we can report. And he also called his chief of staff, Jeff Zients, and the campaign co-chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, in separate calls to talk through this before the entire world was made aware of this very, very significant decision, Chris. And now, of course, that leads to a series of many other different calls. The chief of staff then had a call with the cabinet to talk about the president's decision. Other senior leadership had their own calls, both with the campaign and with key White House staff. And I think something that is really just notable here is the amount of young people or rank and file staffers who are working on these campaigns and who are in the White House trying to focus on their job, trying to plan for the week ahead, who learned about this on social media, and it was that tightly held. It was that close of a hold before everybody else learned about it. But as you heard there from Mike, a key priority now for the campaign is to try to assure those hundreds of staffers, who are many of them in Wilmington, Delaware, at the headquarters, and others in battleground states, that for now they appear to still have a job, that they will simply transfer over to the Kamala Harris campaign apparatus once that becomes formalized. And as we know from that call, I'm told that Jennifer O'Malley Dillon essentially said that they had already tried to build this campaign and reelect effort to, quote, beat Donald Trump in November, and that mission for them, at least, doesn't change with Vice President Harris leading the way. And I'm told that she did acknowledge to staffers on that call that, of course, it was okay to grieve. I'm told she said it's okay to feel sad, that this is a difficult moment, that you can feel unsure about the path ahead, because, again, so many of them had been told just last night that the president was plowing ahead, that they were organizing events he was going to have on the trail this coming week, fundraisers where invites had been sent out just yesterday to donors in California, in Illinois, that are going to, of course, change now with this big news. And so she did want to emphasize to staffers, Jen O'Malley Dillon, that it was okay to feel all those things right now in this moment, but that also she told them she wanted them to feel optimistic about the path ahead. So now there are just so many larger questions, Chris, about how the president communicates this message to the American people in a soaring speech we expect. We just don't know when that's going to happen, because he's still in Delaware. He's still technically testing positive for COVID. So it will be his doctors who have to clear him to return to the White House and resume his schedule, meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which is also going to happen in the next couple of days, we expect. And then at some point, of course, give that address about probably the largest decision of his political career to date.
Monica, thank you for that. Reverend Al Sharpton, we were talking before about how quickly things seem to be moving now. I just got a statement from Congresswoman Williams. She is not just a congresswoman, but she is also chair of the Democratic Party in Georgia. Among other things, after thanking Joe Biden for his decades of public service, she said, President Biden said Georgia made him president, and he's right. There is more work to be done. Our eyes are on the prize. We stand firmly behind Vice President Harris to make it happen, whether it's a Democratic Party chair, activist groups. What are you hearing? What do you expect to see in the coming hours and coming days in terms of a coalescing behind Kamala Harris?
I'm hearing a lot of enthusiasm around the country and a lot of energy that people are saying this is the kind of race that we need to have, where our issues are out front. And I think that it is correct that the geopolitical landscape changes, because now Georgia and North Carolina and other states would be more into play. When Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who chairs the Democratic Party there in Georgia, says that the party is endorsing her, let's not forget this party, this state party, elected a black and a Jewish U.S. senator last time around. So they know how to bring a turnout. This is the state where Stacey Abrams proved you can turn this state around. So I would say that Kamala Harris is the perfect candidate for a Georgia, for North Carolina. When you look at the Republican gubernatorial candidate there in North Carolina and the extreme things he's saying, I really think that you will see a more energetic race, and I think that the map has changed. I think Donald Trump may see a redo of 2020 if people go out and really understand the issues here. And I think that Kamala Harris has the possibility of making that very clear.
All right. Thank you for that, Rev. Let me go to our chief Washington correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, who also for such a long time has covered foreign affairs for us as well. Andrea, I'm looking at a statement that was already put out by Ukraine's President Zelensky, expressing how grateful they are to him. But there is absolutely no doubt what the stakes are for Ukraine in its war with Russia, whether it is Joe Biden or Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Talk about the importance of this statement, the message it sends, and anything else you've heard from allies or other foreign leaders.
Well, foreign leaders are going to be very reassured that Joe Biden is going to be succeeded by another Democrat in the nomination. And they're less familiar with Kamala Harris, although Zelensky is. I traveled with the vice president to the Munich Security Forum, the Munich Security Conference. Last year, I saw her and covered her this year, both times with Zelensky. And they have a very warm relationship. Her speech last year was, frankly, she was, getting used to the material. She is much more familiar with foreign policy now, a year later, especially all of the war issues, Ukraine and Russia. She had focused more on domestic issues. Now, since then, of course, in the last couple of months, because of Dobbs, she's been focused primarily on the abortion issue and women's issues. So she, certainly is not, Joe Biden, but who is in terms of foreign policy. But I think that anybody who would replace Biden on the ticket would not have all of those relationships, any of the people who've been talked about, the governors or the like. So Kamala Harris is someone that they would have confidence in if the polling and the organization behind her shows that she could defeat Donald Trump. I think it's Donald Trump that they are most concerned about because of Viktor Orban and the meeting in Mar-a-Lago, because of what Donald Trump has said about Vladimir Putin, about being able to negotiate this, day one or in an hour. And for all of those reasons, they're very concerned about it. And foreign leaders have been talking during the NATO summit and since, certainly in Europe, about trying to Trump-proof Ukraine and the funding, and they have put in certain procedures, some of them not public, to make sure that the funding would continue and other European measures would continue. The European Parliament voted, and that's a very contentious and not at all homogeneous organization. They voted to support Ukraine very vigorously in the last couple of weeks. That said, only America can provide certain weapons, the ATACMS, the Patriots. They can piece things together, and they've been collecting Patriot missiles and other kinds of air defense from other countries because we, frankly, are out of them. We just don't have enough. But, they don't have the kind of weaponry that we need. And if it is President Trump, they are anticipating that there will be increased pressure on Zelensky to negotiate territory. And right now he's in a very weak negotiating position, and that Vladimir Putin, he just wants to hold out until he sees a Trump presidency, because then he believes that he could grab more territory and eventually achieve his goals of taking all of Ukraine by 2035. That said, there's a lot a lot to happen between now and having a successful Democratic election. And the first step would be the fact of getting behind Harris, according to some people, certainly according to the president, according to the Clintons. We have yet to hear from Nancy Pelosi on that. She and Harris have not had the warmest of personal relationships, and the endorsement by Adam Schiff is a great tell that perhaps she would also be falling behind Harris, because legally it is the easiest way to have the campaign structure. She would inherit all of those people who Jen O'Malley Dillon was talking to, would keep their jobs. There would be some layering with some of the Harris staff, but you would have a campaign in place, all of those many offices, the volunteers, as well as the money that would automatically be available to her because she was on the ticket. Some of the big donors might still move their money to down-ballot races, but she would have the, more than $100 million that is in the bank. And there's only 3 weeks to the convention. They've got to do something. There has been a lot of talk about a mini primary, either before or at the convention, and trying to make her compete for this. I think that would be, a lot of people argue that would be messy. But there's also talk of coupling her with someone who is a centrist governor or outgoing governor like Roy Cooper of North Carolina, or governor like Andy Beshear. Governor Whitmer from Michigan has said she absolutely does not want it. Governor Pritzker of Illinois is available, but, I think that you can't have two Californians, so that wouldn't work. So the possibilities are there, but not that deep. But certainly the running mate for Kamala Harris would be very, very important.
And very closely watched right now. Thank you for that, Andrea. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Mark Pocan from the critical swing state of Wisconsin. It's good to see you. What should happen next? Should Vice President Harris be the Democratic nominee?
I'll tell you, I can't wait to have her come to Wisconsin. This is a swing state, as you said. She actually grew up for a little bit of time in Madison, Wisconsin, certainly has been here a lot during the campaign so far. And this is the energy that we've been looking for. We are a critical swing state. We've got a U.S. Senate seat up. We've got competitive House seats. And having her on the ticket is going to be just the energy we need in my state to win in November.
Congressman, I'm here with Reverend Al Sharpton. He'd like to ask you a question as well.
Yes, Congressman. 21,000. That's how many voters tipped the state of Wisconsin to the Democrats in the 2020 election. In 2016, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by just over 22,000 votes. What impact will this announcement have on Wisconsin? And can Vice President Harris win your state, given the history of the last two presidential election cycles?
We heard from a lot of people in the last 3 weeks after the debate. People didn't like the choice of two older white men. And, now there's one left. And I think the Republican Party is going to have to assess whether or not they're going to keep him on the ticket. He's got felonies. He's got all the liabilities that are still out there. We don't. We now have someone with energy, with a connection to my state, someone who can talk about the accomplishments that she had. It's the Biden-Harris administration, don't forget, that got us out of COVID. It has a strong economically, and now she can be an aggressive campaigner in this state. I'm really looking forward to having her talk about things like freedom to make decisions about your body in Wisconsin. Thanks to Donald Trump and his picks for the Supreme Court, they overturned Roe versus Wade, and now we live in 1849 law when it comes to abortion in Wisconsin. This is why I think having the vice president on the ticket is going to be crucial and really helpful in my home state.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Congressman Pocan. Joining me now, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. You served with Kamala Harris. You know her from the campaign trail. Do you support her as the nominee?
Yes, I do. And I did want to say something today first about President Biden. He took the honorable path. He has always led with conviction, with integrity, and he did it today. It's not an easy thing, and he did the right thing for our country, and I'm very excited about Kamala Harris as our candidate.
Of course, it was the debate that began these calls for President Biden to step aside. And a big moment, if indeed Kamala Harris is the nominee, will be an upcoming debate, if it holds, against Donald Trump. You're someone who debated against her. You were on the stage with her in 2020. Preview for us what you think a Kamala Harris-Donald Trump debate would look like.
I think it's going to be good. She is a fierce competitor, but most importantly, she knows the work. She comes to this with the receipts as a strong leader, and she's going to bring that to the debate stage. And I want to say one thing about running against Kamala. We started the race as friends. We ended as better friends. I got to know her family, got to know Doug. My husband and Doug got to be friends. This is something that I think people are going to get to see her in a different light. Being a vice president is not always an easy thing. And here she's now going to be the leader on that stage. And I just think you're going to see on the debate stage someone that's going to make the case of the differences. You've got, Donald Trump on a video saying he's proudly the person that overturned Roe v. Wade. You're going to have Kamala Harris as the one that cross-examined the Supreme Court justices and took them on, the very justices that made the decision in the Dobbs case to overturn Roe v. Wade. You're going to have Donald Trump with his felony indictments and convictions. You're going to have Kamala Harris as the former prosecutor that follows the rule of law. I don't know what bigger contrast you need, Chris.
I cannot imagine a state where the race appeared to be closer than it was between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It really was neck and neck in most of the polls, certainly well within the margin of error. How does this change the equation on the ground in your state?
Well, Minnesota is a grassroots state. We have the highest voter turnout in the country. There's a lot of interest in politics. And, we've tended to go with interesting characters, Governor Jesse Ventura, to give you an example. And so we are ready for last-minute changes, things that happen, close elections. But I know this is going to be a strong year with this ticket and the new energy we'll see, including there's going to be a lot of anticipation of the vice presidential candidate. And I will say it's going to be shorter than these things usually are, kind of like speed dating. But Kamala Harris knows the people. She knows the leaders. So you're going to have that coming up. And then you're going to have the grassroots, I think, ignited, which we like to have in Minnesota and in our neighboring state of Wisconsin that you just interviewed the congressman about. We like a lot of grassroots politics in the Midwest, and I think you're going to see more volunteers coming in and a lot of energy for the Harris ticket.
Well, let me ask you, because we just had reporting from Jen O'Malley Dillon that she called the folks in the battleground states and the other states where there is an infrastructure. She stressed the campaign was already built to beat Donald Trump. That's the way she put it. And that is now still the plan with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. She indicated that jobs were safe. They would basically transfer the campaign operation to Kamala Harris, assuming, of course, that that's what it ends up being. What can you tell us about the infrastructure that's on the ground? Is it built to beat Trump right now?
Yes, it is. And our state has dozens of field offices open. But I've also campaigned for the ticket in other states, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in New Hampshire, and I've seen the kind of structure they have in place. But I think what you see after a lot of angst, a lot of difficult times over the last few weeks, what you're going to see is an energized campaign offices, energized base, people showing up to volunteer like they've never had before because they get it. The time is short. We do not have time to go back and look in the rearview mirror and talk about who said what and who was calling for this and who wrote an op-ed. There's no time for bitterness, man. We have got to unite behind this ticket with Kamala Harris at the helm and move forward. And I know that's what Joe Biden believes because he cares deeply about what happens next, not just his legacy, which is so profound, but also what happens next.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
And hi, Al.
Hi. Good to see you.
I look forward to being on your show soon. We'll have a lot to talk about.
No doubt about it. I look forward to it.
There is never any shortage of things to talk about these days. And I have to tell you about the statement that we just got from Pennsylvania, from Governor Josh Shapiro, who says he spoke to President Biden and then subsequently spoke to Vice President Harris And he released the following statement. When our founders came together in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to declare our independence and establish our democracy, they did so with the clear understanding that we would only succeed if we were united. In the 248 years since, our country and our people have been tested, but the American spirit has always triumphed. Despite our individual differences, when our safety was threatened, when our values and freedoms were attacked, when the stakes were high, Americans have found ways to come together and unite behind common cause and common purpose. That's the lesson of our founders who gathered in Pennsylvania 2.5 centuries ago, and it's the lesson our party must learn from now. I've known Kamala Harris for nearly 2 decades. We've both been prosecutors. We've both stood up for the rule of law. We've both fought for the people and delivered results. Kamala Harris is a patriot worthy of our support, and she will continue the work of generations of Americans who came before us to perfect our union, protect our democracy, and advance real freedom. She has served the country honorably as vice president, and she is ready to be president. The best path forward for the Democratic Party is to quickly unite behind Vice President Harris and refocus on winning the presidency. The contrast in this race could not be clearer, and the road to victory in November runs right through Pennsylvania, where this collective work began. I will do everything I can to help elect Kamala Harris as the 47th President of the United States. Reverend Al Sharpton, first of all, that's a very impressively written statement in a fairly short period of time. He's spoken to the president. He's spoken to Vice President Harris. He's supporting her. So for people out there who are talking about some sort of open nominating process, it's clear he's not looking for the job. But how does he strike you as a possible vice presidential running mate?
Well, I think that's going to be up to the candidate now, Ms. Harris. I think there are several that would be credible. But I think it's important because even in the first hour that you and I were talking, we heard Governor Shapiro's name mentioned in a possible open convention. He just closed that door.
He did.
And you've also now seen the Georgia party come out for her. We just heard that Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers come out. As you start seeing people with major constituencies and governors of a critical state like Pennsylvania come out, it is in many ways the kind of momentum you need for a campaign like this. And I think it unites the party and leads to a convention where you won't see a lot of infighting. I think it's a very important statement Governor Shapiro released. And I agree with you, it was well written in such a short period of time.
Again, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, often mentioned as someone, if Joe Biden stepped down, who could replace him, saying very clearly he calls on the party to quickly unite behind Vice President Harris. So how are Americans digesting the news of this seismic shift in the Democratic campaign? We're back with that right after a quick break.
On Medicare? Have diabetes? When enjoying life's special moments, are you left guessing which foods are right for you? With the Freestyle Libre 3 system, you'll know your glucose and where it's headed. No finger sticks needed. Freestyle Libre 3. Manage your diabetes with more confidence and lower your A1C so you can focus on those special moments. Covered by Medicare for more people managing diabetes with insulin. Talk to your provider or visit freestylelibre.us/Medicare.
Recipes. Recipes that are more than their ingredients. Recipes written by hand and lost to time can now be analyzed and restored using the power of Dell AI, preserving memories and helping to write new ones.
Work. Play. Blink. Relief. Work. Play. Blink. Relief.
The only 3-in-1 extended relief formula for dry eyes.
Blink.
At the UPS store, we offer a lot because running a small business takes a lot. That's why we're the Think Outside the Box store, the Help Protect Your Privacy store, and the Give Your Business a Real Street Address store. So while you're juggling everything else like the boss you are, we're the Extra Pair of Hands store, you can count on us as the shredding and mailboxing, anything and everything to keep you going store. Come into the UPS store today and be unstoppable.
When you purchase a pair of Bombas socks, tees, or underwear, you also donate one to someone facing homelessness. One purchased equals one donated. 100 million donations and counting. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
Getting older is part of the journey, even with worsening heart failure. So when I had carpal tunnel syndrome, lower back pain, and shortness of breath, I thought that's what getting older felt like. Thank goodness I called my cardiologist. I have ATTR-CM, a rare but serious disease, and getting diagnosed early made a difference. If you have any of these warning signs, don't wait. Ask your cardiologist about ATTR-CM today.
You know, there's this thing called age, and it sucks.
If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints by years. Introducing InstaFlex Advanced.
It's restored my joints without just temporarily masking my symptoms. When you can find a product that can take that away to the point that you can live your life again, that is a miracle to me.
Get a complimentary sample by texting SECRET to 231231. InstaFlex Advanced targets the root cause of joint soreness and stiffness with a unique combination of 5 key natural ingredients. Key ingredients backed by 5 clinical studies.
I love this product. I'm telling you, it works.
InstaFlex Advanced is the #1 selling joint brand at GNC, but you can only get your complimentary sample by texting SECRET to 231231. Plus, text now, and we'll include a tube of InstaFlex pain cream for fast-acting relief absolutely free. Text SECRET to 231231 today.
Here's to getting better with age.
Here's to beating these two every Thursday.
Help fuel today with Boost High Protein. Complete nutrition you need without the stuff you don't. So, here's to now.
An alternative to pills, Voltaren is a clinically proven arthritis pain relief gel which penetrates deep to target the source of pain with non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medicine directly at the source. Voltaren, the joy of movement.
We are back with breaking news coverage. This stunning announcement by President Biden that he is ending his candidacy for president. A couple of pieces of breaking news. We just heard from a spokesperson, the communications director for First Lady Jill Biden. Elizabeth Alexander said this: down to the last hours of the decision only he could make, she, meaning the First Lady, was supportive of whatever road he chose. She's his biggest believer, champion, and always on his side in that trusted way only a spouse of almost 50 years can be. We are also hearing about how busy President Biden has been since he made this decision and posted it. Today, the president has spoken to a number of members of Congress. He has been speaking to governors. Josh Shapiro confirmed that he had spoken to him. He's been talking to supporters, and he will continue to engage with key stakeholders tonight and tomorrow. In fact, for the first time, I saw from what was the Biden-Harris campaign, but from now, Joe Biden repeating his statement about his decision, but also giving his full endorsement to Kamala Harris and asking to support her campaign. So a fundraising email directly from Joe Biden, again, repeating his statements that he put out several hours ago. All of this leading me to the people who really count, and that's the voters, how they are reacting this hour. We know they've all been on their phones. We know they've been talking to folks, but let me bring in NBC's correspondent George Solis. He's in Butler, Pennsylvania, heavily Republican area, and obviously a location where the former president was the target of an attempted assassination. What are you hearing from voters there?
Yeah, hey, Chris, obviously the voters, it's not fair to, it's stretched to say that here in Butler, Pennsylvania, many are experiencing a little bit of breaking news whiplash. As you mentioned, it was a little more than a week ago that the eyes of the world were here in Butler in that failed assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. Today, we broke the news to many here in this community that President Joe Biden was not going to be seeking re-election and, in fact, endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, many of them saying that's what they expected. And as you mentioned, it's fair to say that we're also here in the heart of Trump country. Many of them excited by what this means for their candidate. They believe that this basically essentially secures the presidency for former President Donald Trump. Some of them saying it was about time. Some of them saying they're sad to some degree that, he should have done this sooner. And some now questioning the validity of whether or not the president can actually serve the remainder of the presidency. And again, those are just some of the dialogues that we've been having here with the voters. Here's a little bit more of my conversation with voters as we broke the news to them this afternoon. Where do we go from here?
I don't know. I think that's this scary part of it all, is that we just don't know what anything's going to happen. We don't know where it's going to go, and now it kind of shows that people's votes don't really matter, no matter who you vote for. If it's Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. It just, does our vote even count anymore?
So I'm looking forward to the future and what's going to happen now and who's going to win the race, and this is going to be exciting.
Does it make this interesting for this race?
This is very interesting. Very, very, very.
Most interesting race I've ever seen.
And Chris, and on the subject of Governor Josh Shapiro, earlier I also spoke with Representative Brendan Boy, who represents Pennsylvania's 2nd Congressional District. I asked him what he thought if Vice President Harris selected Josh Shapiro as a possible running mate should she get the nomination. Here's what he told me briefly. I'll paraphrase. He says, "Well, I'm always in favor of Pennsylvanians doing well. I've always loved the fact that literally the person in the White House right now," referring to Joe Biden, "was born and raised in Pennsylvania," going on to say, "I am always in favor of as many of Pennsylvanians getting as many jobs as possible." So you can kind of read between the lines on that. So we'll see where it goes from here, and we'll continue gathering reaction from the voters here in Butler, Pennsylvania. Chris.
George Solis, thank you. Let me bring in Tim Miller, host of the Bulwark podcast, Danielle Moody, host of the Woke AF Daily podcast. Great to have both of you here. Tim, let's start with the voters, okay? I mean, we saw the polls. The polls said that they thought both of these guys were too old. There wasn't a tremendous amount of broad enthusiasm for either. Now, they have a younger candidate on the Democratic side, whether it's Kamala Harris or anyone else. But Kamala a lot of people seem to be coalescing around her. What does that mean for voters in the middle who truly hadn't made up their minds? What does it mean for never Trump Republicans, Tim?
Yeah. Well, look, I think that there's a big category of voters for whom this is a huge relief. I mean, there has been a lot of discussion about this over the past 3 weeks among political obsessives and pundits. But if you just look at the numbers or talk to voters or listen to focus groups, there's a huge swath of Americans that did not want this rematch and were begging for anyone else besides Trump and Biden. And so now the Democrats get to give those voters what they've been asking for. And so I think that you'll see, some coalescing around the vice president, or if for some reason ends up being someone else among these these people that are Democratic leaning voters that were unhappy with the choice that they were given with the current president. So I think that's the first thing. And then when you talk about the other swing categories of voters, among never Trump Republicans, I think it will be the vice president's VP pick will matter. I think how she messages this race will matter. I think she's a huge opportunity to, kind of go back to her roots as a prosecutor, as a law and order candidate running against a criminal. I think that if she, demonstrates that, which she will, I think that she has the foreign policy chops. She's going to stand with Ukraine. She's going to stand with our allies. I think that she will be able to bring in a lot of the never Trump Republican types that I think had been, a little bit skittish, let's say, to say the least, over the past few weeks.
All right, let's hear a little bit more from some voters across the country and how they're responding to this stunning news.
I'm not upset necessarily. I was voting for him because I don't want to vote for Donald Trump. I don't want him in office. So I guess voting for Biden was kind of like, not that he's a bad guy, but it's the lesser of the two bad choices.
Kind of surprised. I had a feeling it might happen, but I just thought he'd hold out a little more. I kind of feel sorry for him, all the work that he's put in, and I think he was getting a lot of pressure to just say, no more, I'm done.
Very happy. And I think a lot of other people are happy too. We just don't need someone as old as he is as a president. I think that Trump will win because I think he's going to make America great again.
So there's a little bit of a cross-section there, Danielle. But what are you looking for in the coming days and weeks to hear from voters, from polls that'll show you how much this race has shifted? And what's your gut?
I mean, my gut right now is that Democrats need to circle the wagons and build a barricade around Kamala Harris. She is the pick. And right now we're seeing endorsements rolling in over the last few hours. If you're looking on social media, you're seeing the excitement that people have right now. They are re-energized. And now is our moment, right? It is either we continue with the project of democracy or we live under Project 2025. And so now we can focus our attention back to where it has needed to be, which is the existential threat that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have over this country and our democracy. Kamala Harris is a brilliant prosecutor who can prosecute this case to the American people, and it is going to be between her, a prosecutor, or a felon. And I think that that conversation is the one that the American people are ready to have and excited to have, and I look forward to us going into a united convention.
Tim, Danielle, thank you both. Former President Donald Trump reacted to Joe Biden dropping out of the race by telling NBC News he thinks that Biden is, quote, the worst president in the history of the United States by far. It's a statement he's made many times before. A senior Trump advisor told NBC News before Biden's announcement that the campaign preferred Biden's
campaign official who told me that they were planning for potential other options. Kamala Harris as others, not only doing internal polling, but also assessments. Of course, for the last 20 months, they have been running against Joe Biden. Now, suddenly, with just 3 months left, they're going to have to change course, not only the actual messaging, but also in terms of where they may have to best put their resources, right? You're looking at 7 competitive battleground states that, in a conversation I had also with RNC Chairman Michael Whatley just yesterday, they were talking about it. And with a different candidate, there could very well be some different dynamics. If you go with Vice President Kamala Harris, suddenly does that make a state like North Carolina or Georgia, Wisconsin a more focus point? Depending on which VP do you select. If you select Roy Cooper out of North Carolina, does that change the resources, right? Or if you choose Mark Kelly out of Arizona, does that suddenly force the Trump campaign's hand to go and put more investment there, despite them having felt very confident about their current situation? And Donald Trump also, he even a social media post just a bit of time ago, he bemoaned the fact that they have already put resources towards damaging the messaging and the credibility of the current president, Joe Biden. And the words of Donald Trump on social media, they're going to have to start all over. Of course, there's also the question, Chris, about the September debate that Donald Trump had agreed to with the Biden campaign. But in another social media post, Donald Trump opening up the door, suggesting that he doesn't want it to be with ABC, where that debate, the second debate, was previously slated to take place. Instead, he said it should be on Fox. And so there's suddenly that dynamic. And we're 4 weeks away from the Democratic National Convention and whoever it is becoming the formal nominee of the party. So, of course, this leaves open a whole month for the Trump campaign to continue to hit the campaign trail. He'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina, but also this is going to be an opportunity for the Senate-based races, too, to really take shape and take hold. So there's a lot at play for the Republican Party as well as the Democrats sort out what their ticket's going to look like.
NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, thank you, as always. Joining me now is John Kasich, former Ohio governor, 2016 presidential candidate, and MSNBC contributor. Well, here we are, Governor Kasich, this monumental day, unlike anything
I told
we've
you
ever
it was
seen.
coming.
You told me.
I told you it was coming.
You predicted it. So now, you just heard from Vaughn. There's a lot that's at play here right now. What do you see as the state of the race if it's Trump-Harris?
Well, first of all, let's see if Harris is the candidate, the nominee. We know she's the candidate. Is she the nominee? Will other people get in the race? Right now, it doesn't appear so, but there's been a lot of speculation that there's 3 or 4 other people thinking about it. I've been told that this afternoon. I don't know if that will happen. I think, look, this has come very late, obviously. The issue is, if it is Kamala Harris, if she is going to be the nominee, what does the convention look like? Are they unified in that convention? Do they generate excitement? And are they able to define her in a positive way so that the American people can look and say, yeah, I can see that maybe she can do it. most people will not make up her mind about this till probably around Labor Day. So you're going to go, we'll see if she's the person that gets, unanimous support into that convention. Do they have a convention that allows her to project herself in such a way that people can see her as a president of the United States? And can they be positive enough with enough excitement and energy to be able to have her viewed in a very short period of time as somebody that could beat Donald Trump and could run the United States of America? Some of it will depend on who she picks as a vice president. People don't really care that much about who gets picked for vice president, except in this case, it can add, Chris, in my opinion, to the excitement that the Democrats so sorely need now, with the Republicans coming out of their convention being so unified and excited.
Governor, President Biden announced this decision just days after, really, the Republican National Convention wrapped and officially nominated Donald Trump and J.D. Vance of Ohio as their nominated ticket. Now, what have been your reflections on what you saw this past week in Milwaukee?
I think they had a very good convention, Al. I think they were unified. We didn't see, like the January 6 people parading around. I think the only thing that was missing is, I think, Donald Trump for the first, it's the first 30 minutes, and you're in order. You know how this works. The first 30 minutes, he did an outstanding job, but then he kind of went backwards. And I think he missed the opportunity to put an exclamation point on that convention, which I think gives Democrats an opportunity to feel some hope. But now with Biden dropping out, there was no way Joe Biden could win. Look, it doesn't make me happy that a man has aged and really was not going to be able to project or do his job in the future, but he's now left. Good for him to put the country first. But now it's late. It's late, as you know. It takes a long time to rev up a campaign for president. But they are where they are. A convention's coming soon, and they're going to have to work like crazy to get her defined in a positive and an uplifting way.
Always great to see you from the great state of Ohio, former Governor John Kasich. Thank you. I want to bring in Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts.
Thank you.
I want to read to you something that another member told one of our reporters. Everyone I talk to is feeling focused. I think you'll find a lot of energy when members come back this week. What are you hearing, and are you endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to take a moment to thank President Biden. Joe Biden has dedicated more than 50 years of service to our nation as a senator, a vice president, and as the 46th president of the United States. And the Biden-Harris White House, I've worked very closely with them. They've been engaged partners who've made real progress for our communities. And I'm deeply grateful for the president's service. I know this is not a decision that he arrives at lightly. I think it's important to hold space for that. And I respect his decision to pass the torch. And I vigorously endorse Kamala Harris. She is a moral and empathetic leader. She is poised, she is prepared, and she is qualified. I'm the chair of the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force in the House. She has been the most effective voice when it comes to abortion justice. We've worked closely on healthcare justice, student debt cancellation, the racial wealth gap. I am confident that Kamala Harris can unite this party and build the coalition necessary for us to win in November.
Let's talk a little bit about constituencies. We saw the statement from the leader of the Democratic Party in Georgia, Congresswoman Williams. We heard from Joyce Beatty, another of your colleagues. She says there's going to be a call with a number of women in Black organizations that she says she expects could number 20,000 or 30,000. What is the coalition that you think Kamala Harris can build that makes her a fierce competitor against Donald Trump?
Well, obviously, Black women have been the backbone of the Democratic Party. And so Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket is both significant and meaningful to Black women. But I know that Kamala Harris will be an effective, empathetic, and moral leader for everyone who calls this country home. She is very clear about what the stakes are. She brings her lived experience to this job. She knows that the Republicans will criminalize immigrants, will ban bodies, will ban books, and are existential, a real threat to our democracy. And we need to look no further than Project 2025 to know that. This 900-page far right-wing manifesto, it's a blueprint for what would happen under a Trump administration. She understands the stakes of another Supreme Court being weaponized to obstruct the will of the majority of the people. So I have, again, great confidence in her ability to unite this party, to appeal to a diversity of constituencies, and to unite this party for a victory in November.
Ayanna Pressley, it's good to talk to you again, and appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you. With me now, Randi Weingarten, who is president of the American Federation of Teachers, but she is also on the Rules Committee of the DNC, and you're just the person in that role that I've been wanting to talk to you. John Kasich just asked the key question: what will this convention look like? AOC raised some questions about how this would actually work if Joe Biden stepped down. What can you tell to people who want to know what the heck is next?
So look, we are living in unprecedented times, and we're just starting our convention. The AFT, delegate convention starts tomorrow morning. And so our executive council convened tonight and we unanimously endorsed Vice President Harris for president, subject obviously to our convention's ratification. But there's real excitement here. But let me just say, just like Congresswoman Pressley said, we honor President Biden. We respect President Biden. We respect his decision. But he has been a transformative president, and he is a patriot. And the fact that he decided today that to withdraw and to endorse Vice President Harris sends a message to the Democratic Party that we need to unite together. And that is what the phone calls I've had all afternoon have said. And I think what you're seeing tonight is lots of different elements of the Democratic Party, constituents of the Democratic Party, labor, black women, Latinos, others coming together to say we are uniting for Vice President Harris to be president. And there's reasons why. It's not just this administration, as transformative as it's been. It is her herself. The fact that she is a fighter against gun violence, the fact that she is a fighter for people who have student debts, the fact that she's been 20 states this year fighting to expand reproductive health. She is a fighter. She can prosecute the case against Donald Trump, and she can make the case for working people and for families in America. And that's why I think you're seeing both a lot of sadness and frankly, I'm heartbroken that at what has happened to the president, but a lot of sadness, but also a lot of excitement that we can use.
Coverage will continue next. We have Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joy Reid, and Jen Psaki bringing us all the latest developments after President Biden's historic decision to withdraw from the 2024 race. So keep it on MSNBC. We've got a lot more coverage right after this.
Every day, more dog people are deciding it's time for a fresh approach to pet food. Developed with vets, made from real meat and veggies, portioned for your dog, and delivered right to your door. It's smarter, healthier pet food.
Doug.
Limu, someone needs to customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. Let's fly. Chief?
Doug.
Oh, wow. I thought you were right behind me.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Head & Shoulders is launching something huge. The bare minimum. Anti-dandruff shampoo made with only 9 ingredients, no sulfates, silicones, or dyes, and packaged with 45% less plastic, giving you outstanding dandruff protection and leaving hair beautiful and moisturized. Major dandruff protection, minimal ingredients. Job done. New Head & Shoulders Bare.
If you spit blood when you brush, it could be the start of a domino effect. New Parodontics Active Gum Repair Breath Freshener. Clinically proven to help reverse the 4 signs of early gum disease. A new toothpaste from Parodontics, the gum experts.
Cologuard?
Cologuard.
Cologuard.
Screen for colon cancer.
At home, like you want.
You the man. Cologuard is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk. False positive and negative results may occur. Ask your provider for Cologuard.
I did it my way.
Hi, I'm Kevin, and I've lost 152 pounds on Golo. I decided to give Golo a try. Taking the release supplement, I noticed a change within the first week. And each month, the weight just kept coming off. With Golo, you can keep the weight off.
Why do we accept waiting 2 weeks for payday? Thanks to Chime, I don't have to wait to get paid anymore. I couldn't believe it. I can get up to $500 of my pay on my schedule. There's no interest, no credit checks, no mandatory fees. Join me at chime.com and get paid when you say.
This is the one who helps everyone stay safe. An unsung hero in a building full of everyday heroes is just how he likes it. The industrial grade products you need. Call, click, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I got this $1,000 camera for only $41 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
I got this barbecue smoker for $26.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
Happy Sunday. Anything going on? Thank you for joining us for this special coverage tonight. I'm Rachel Maddow. I am joined by my beloved colleagues who I cannot wait to talk to tonight about what has happened today. Joy Reid is here, Nicole Wallace is here, Jen Psaki. You do not see Joy on your screen right now because there's some gremlin with the camera, but we'll have her in just a moment. Joy is standing by as well. The 4 of us will be with you throughout the duration of this special coverage tonight. You know, we do special coverage for all sorts of stuff. This is not all sorts of stuff. You will always remember where you were when you heard the news today. What a day in history. President Joe Biden making American history with an act of profound political and personal sacrifice. 3.5 years into his presidency, President Joe Biden stepping down from his re-election bid in favor of his Vice President Kamala Harris.